I'm doing what's right for the deal. And oftentimes when we hand out leads too, Tom, best agent for the lead, not is it your turn. Your
Hmm.
turn is irrelevant if the customer is a better match for another agent. Even,
Yes.
smart agents know this.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, whether you're in title, insurance, mortgage, obviously, if you're a real estate agent or anyone who is advising anybody thinking about making a real estate decision over the next 6, 12, 18 months, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Byron Lazine. Lisa Chinati, jet setting again. I think you guys just take turns on vacations now, and I'm the
Well, we
sucker
sh-
that
we
shows up every week. So
we share a plane, so if
nice.
she's using it, I can't use it.
I would imagine she probably owns the plane, and she has like a sublease for you on occasion. But
I'm subleasing it from Lisa for
yes,
sure.
love it, love it. So we interesting topic here today, Byron, and this one I think there's some legs to it here. So the Northwest MLS, they came out and said they're not going to opt in to NAR's settlement agreement, which I'm interested to see what happens after this. This is the first domino to fall here, and they had a couple reasons. You guys at BAM, or I guess us guys, did a nice job breaking it down in an article because there was really two reasons they decided to go this way. One is the Northwest MLS already has in place listing standards that improve compensation transparency and has had those changes in place for several years. Reason number two, the NAR settlement eliminates competition transparency for buyers and limits sellers' choices by banning offers of compensation from MLSs that opt in to the agreement. So basically, they're saying we're already ahead of the game, and we're trying to improve transparency. And there's nothing NAR is doing that the Northwest MLS can't do on its own. Uh, I'm interested to see how this what happens afterwards with other MLSs. I think that's going to be the big question here. But my initial take on this is they're standing up and saying, "Hey, this is a little ridiculous." Some of the things that are being said, like commissions aren't negotiable. We both know that I've always negotiated commissions for 22 years. I don't know about you. It comes up all the time. And
Oh,
that
sure.
we've seen, I've seen builders offer out $500 offers of compensation. I've seen dollar offers of compensation. I mean, that's been going on for a while as well. And this is an MLS standing up and saying that change is a step in the wrong direction and it's detrimental to consumers and brokers alike. So what do you think?
Well, I love the verbiage. Highlight it, implant this into your brain and potentially your verbiage as you talk to sellers and explain to them the changes. The position from, certainly if I'm in this MLS, I'm using this as a talking point all the time. The position
Mhm.
from the NWMLS is the NAR settlement eliminates compensation transparency for buyers. What you said, Tom, there, it limits sellers' choice by banning offers of compensations from MLSs that opt into some pretty strong
Mhm.
positioning there. But what do I ultimately think? I think you said earlier, what do I think happens to the Northwest MLS? I'll tell you what I think. Nothing happens to the Northwest MLS. Absolutely nothing. I just saw a clip from Jay-Z, and he was being interviewed, and they said they didn't ask him about P. Diddy. Don't worry, Tom. They were
Was
asking him
it was
about his
this where he was sitting down with, like, Tom Brady and some other people? Was that the same interview?
no, no. I don't. Maybe, but it was. I don't know who the reporter was, female reporter, and she says, when are you going to get back in the studio? When are you going to get back on the grind, Jigga J? Like, when's the next album coming out? Um, basically asking, hey, he's kind of like semi-retired, doesn't produce music. And he kind of had this answer of like, it's got to really speak to me. I got to be passionate about it. You think Michael Ketchmark's going to be passionate about going after the Northwest MLS? All the comments in the Jay-Z clip were, yeah, of course he's not making music. He's a billionaire. He's not in the struggle. When he was in the struggle, he was motivated to make and
Mhm.
create because it was getting him out of the struggle. You think Ketchmark, after sitting on, 100 million plus in profits off of this deal, is going to be motivated to go after the Northwest MLS? He's going to say, he has a quote in here: "Time will tell how the new Northwest MLS rules benefit home sellers compared to the NAR settlement. A couple of months ago, quarter one, Michael Ketchmark would have said, the Northwest MLS is the devil. I'm coming after them
Yep.
with fury. That would have been his position. Now it's time will tell. We'll see how their position benefits sellers. But then he says, but as a rule, I'm always suspicious when the fox says it is guarding the chicken house. And that is what is happening now in Washington. So he does his attorney speak of here's how I take a shot at people politely. I use this analogy about a
Yep.
chicken and a fox. He's not going to do anything. He's made so much money. He's swimming in it. He's going to be spending his money.
I totally agree with you because the NAR, right? I mean, they had all this money to come up with the settlement dollars, and they're, we've talked about that at length on the pod here. These MLSs, I don't think they make a lot of money, and I mean, they're not going to be the same big juicy target that he can go after here. And this comment about the fox guarding the chicken house, I mean, it's typical, BS where it's, hey, you know what? What did you get paid on this settlement? Who got
Right.
all the money? It was Michael Ketchmark. It wasn't consumers. Like it's a little ridiculous here.
According to the formula, which I think Northwest MLS could have probably gotten this lower, many of the brokerages have gotten the formula lower. Obviously, you have the outlier Berkshire Hathaway Home Services who
Mhm.
got completely destroyed, but they would be paying 3.31 million Northwest MLS. That would be equal to 100 times multiplied by the number of Northwest MLS members in a calendar year. That's the formula that's
Mhm.
out there for them in the proposed settlement. They probably could have negotiated that down. Here's the
Sure.
other thing for why I think Northwest MLS is probably a couple reasons they're making a smart decision, a strategic decision on their part is one, they've been a leader in the country in
Yes.
MLS is making changes. So they've been in the news often for being ahead of the curve, making changes. Cool. So you've got that feather in your cap. The other thing is they could always go back to the table. They're just not jumping into the proposed settlement to the deadline that's coming up in June, but they could come back in and be like, somebody comes and sues. All the attorneys are like, we don't want to bankrupt anybody. We want people to pay us our money. We want to collect our 35%,
Mhm.
not 3.5, 35%. We want to make sure that money's available. And so nothing would change if in a year they've got to come back to the table. They'd be able to negotiate a deal.
Yeah, and I think the thing to look at here is the Northwest MLS. You're absolutely right. Has been a leader, but there are some larger, more influential MLSs out there. You've got the California MLS. You've got Bright MLS, and
Bright was
it's
just in the news, yesterday. Did you see that? Did you pick
I,
that up?
I didn't, and I'm a member of the MLS. Let's look at this
Hold on,
here.
I'll pull it up and I'll send it to you, but I know what you're talking about with the Californians you talked about before the show, and Bright, you just mentioned that just came to my mind, so, um, I'll find that and send it to you.
Well, and what the California MLS is doing, and they're gonna these larger MLSs tend to influence others. I remember when Trend used to be a smaller MLS and Bright bought it up. Now it's very regional. It's a lot of large areas. Well, the California MLS, now what they're doing is they have a new field. It's called Concessions in Price Field. It's to provide upfront communication on concessions to improve communication and transparency between listing agents, buyer agents, and home buyers. And if you look at the context of this, 40% of the closed listings in the CRMLS included concessions. And that's, a seller agreed payment towards the buyer's expenses and other buyer closing costs. Sellers assist, right? I mean, hey, I'm going to give you a credit because the house needs a paint job, or there's a special assessment with the homeowners association coming due in a couple years. We're going to prepay that for you as an incentive to buy the home. It's not just commission. And I want to really stress that. And if this is going to be allowed, and one of the pain points that I'm a little concerned about for us, I don't know what you think, Byron, is the communication of compensation on our listings, because that's like a whole job now that we have to do because we can't put it on the MLS. I like this field because I think it's something that's going to make it a little easier to do business for buyers, sellers, and real estate agents. So you're seeing the MLSs are now taking charge a little bit. Art Carter, we've seen him actually do a presentation at T360 where he was advocating for like a larger, more band together MLS.
Mhm.
Um, He said, we're always looking for ways to improve user experience, and considering the fact that the data shows an extensive use of concessions in closed listings, these new CIP fields at the listing level seemed like no brainers. By providing new fields that clearly specify a seller's willingness to consider concessions, we can better foster communication between all our users to make finding the right property that much easier. You know what that sounds like? Transparency. That sounds like something buyers should know before they walk in the door. So that looks like it's in line with this NAR suit, even though I'm sure some people don't agree with that.
Yeah, and just going back to the transparency statement, something that Northwest MLS said is that they believe the NAR settlement could lead to more secretive conversations around compensation. Like, meaning, somebody could reach out, hey, I've got a buyer. Is there a compensation offer on, 123 Main Street? And the listing agent could maybe say one number to agent A, but agent B is a buddy and they just went to the ball game last night. Um, and they make some special offer to agent B, a different offer than what agent A, and you start to have collusion potentially. That's what Northwest MLS said that this proposed settlement could lead to. So now you've got what you mentioned there, California, saying that they're going to expand their concessions field. They're putting that into their MLS, and now Bright MLS is essentially
Yes,
saying the same
same
thing.
thing.
So, hey, do we think these MLSs are talking to each other, Tom?
I would hope so. I would hope they
I
did a
would.
better job than NAR and the large companies that were in the suit. Looks like Bright's doing the same thing June 11th. I think that's going to make life a lot easier for people.
So starting in June for Bright, which Bright is the largest MLS in the country, right?
I think it's second largest behind the CRMLS. I mean, they're neck and
Okay.
neck.
They're right there, but it's a huge MLS.
Mhm.
Starting in June, this field will include an option for payment of buyer agent fees, and updates coming in August will give sellers more flexibility. Bright will remove its offer of compensation field shortly before NAR rule change goes into effect, which will be August 17th. The new concessions field will give sellers the option of saying whether they are open to concessions, and if so, the amount and the type. I mean, this is this not the same thing though? Is that
It's exactly the same thing, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think some people are a little up in arms about this commission lawsuit. Because last week we talked about the DOJ, and a lot of the DOJ coming in and saying we don't want anything there. I think that's unrealistic. Number one, I mean, you're creating all this extra work for people to go see a house and buy a house. It actually hurts consumers to slow it down, and then secondly, I mean, this is they say it's negotiable and not mandatory, right? That was the premise of the whole settlement in the first place. So it's it is
you
the
know, I
same. And you know what? They're doing it. So they feel empowered to. I'm sure they're talking to attorneys. Like this isn't some like, oh, we're just gonna do it anyway sort of decision. I mean, this is well informed.
I brought it up, I think, on the Real Word, what Warren Buffett's comments were at the annual shareholders meeting. And he's like, I've looked at this, talking about the changes in the industry and the settlement. And he goes, you have a system that works. And so it was a head scratcher for him, this whole thing. He says, I think the system, he's only sold 3 homes in his life.
Hmm.
But he's like, you have a system that works. It's been negotiable. It's designed this way because it continuously works and brings more transparency, not less. You know what? If anything, this whole experience, which is an expensive experience to go through to enforce extra training, I think it's elevating training in the industry. I know certainly even in where we were heavy training organizations, we're taking it to a whole nother level
Yes.
right now. So I think training is going up. Where you get your training is more important now than probably ever. The way you speak to a customer, the way you don't breeze through the, as Sharon would say, the forms that govern a real estate transaction. I love, he says that over and over and over again. And I've absolutely stole that and coined it into our training. There's 3 forms that govern the real estate transaction. Has anybody walked you through those? That's a powerful, opener to somebody who's saying, wait a minute, I got to sign a buyer form. What Sharon talks about is bringing to life all the forms. The buyer form is just a third. It's one block in the component that make up the components of a real estate transaction. When you actually help people understand that you're just clicking in one piece of the puzzle, and there's three pieces here. There's three forms that govern the transaction. You got the buyer, you got the seller, and you've got the purchase contract. Those are the three
Mhm.
deals. Just simplify this stuff, explain it. And I think more people, more agents, more great agents out there, knowledge brokers, are going to take this step to simplify, walk them through, use this as a marketing opportunity to help people understand what they're getting into more now than ever.
I just wrote down that quote. That's going to be something we install in our scripting because we were chatting with Lisa this week, and it's what are we doing to train right now? And I kind of had this feeling like we just need to keep focusing on this and getting really clear on the basics of explaining these forms because we know that a lot of people they breeze through them. I think that's brilliant language that makes it very clear what actually goes on. And using that sort of language, right? Well, that's going to simplify it for consumers, like you said. But then all of a sudden, when they got their friend in the business, right? They got their buddy that they know from the softball team that's a real estate agent, the part timer, whoever. And they're like, what do you mean the three forms? Like, when that's going to create a light bulb to go off in consumers' heads. And then you have an opportunity instead of, getting really aggressive with people, you're educating, right? And when you aim to educate, then you end up winning business. I think that's such a brilliant comment there. Like that's
And
going into our team training right now. So good.
if a buyer is like, wait a minute, a buyer form? I just want to do home tours. I just want to see the home. This is all new to me. When you bring the three forms to life that make up a true real estate transaction, you normalize their form. Because if I'm a first time home buyer and I've never owned a home,
Hmm.
and I'm just want to view properties, I don't understand that the seller signing forms. I don't understand that there's, I probably understand that there's a contract when I go to buy, but nobody's walked me through it. Now it's like, oh, there's some paperwork. There's some probably mandatory disclosure state by state that I need to be presented with before I even see homes. Okay, there's a group of paperwork ahead of touring homes and getting into a buyer agency relationship. Normal. There's some forms that the sellers do before they go and list the home. Normal. And then there's some forms that we do together when we bring the two parties together. Normal. Just normalize the process so that you're educating and not coming from a place of playing defense. You're on the offense by providing and walking people through it. So your MLS here, Bright, says maintaining transparency is a win. What we were just talking about, some of that way to speak to customers right there is really highlighting transparency. This, according to Real Estate News, as it considered adjustments to its platform, Bright MLS was hyper focused on maintaining an orderly and transparent marketplace. The decision to keep concessions field was based on data indicating that a substantial number of home sales involved some form of a concession. To your point earlier, concessions can be a variety of different things.
Hmm.
We've got something that came up in the inspection. We've got some dispute around appraisal or HOA or commission or helping out with the mortgage. Right? There's what I just named six probably examples, and there's more. The more information that we can make available on a listing that helps someone to get an offer faster. That's only a win. Okay. So we're not bogging down the transaction. It's so funny that we're just basically going to push it all into this field. And that's the big thing. I mean, DOJ will have a problem with this because they've already
A
said as
hundred
much with
percent.
the Nozalek case. It makes sense for customers, but listen, and this can be a good segue into the next conversation. DOJ and everybody in this current um, Washington, D.C. landscape, they've shown no ability to care about customers. Okay.
Hmm.
Particularly DOJ. You sent me that article about the junk fees, and listen, junk fees are you can break that down and
Sure.
talk about that. Um, Extra fees that are just you know, placeholders for grabbing extra money from
Yeah.
consumers where they don't understand the name of the fee. Get rid of those. That's table stakes. But the current administration, the current DOJ has made it a target. We're not just talking about real estate here. They've made it a target to make sure that businesses can't acquire other businesses. Why are you seeing no M&A in tech right now? They just want to stop any growth of business in America. It seems it's really weird.
It is weird, and what we've seen this be the trend since 2020. I mean, that's the reality of where we are. This is all business here, and I mean the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they issued a new request for information concerning these junk fees. And mortgage lenders have, I mean, we've all seen them, right? There's some lenders, they're great, they have great fees, they give you great rates, and then there's the lenders who are like, what the heck is this fee? So I get that. I'm a big proponent of saving consumers money because there are some money grabs that happen for sure. But this is, the businesses are being targeted. I'm pro business. That's me. I run a business, you run a business. I imagine you feel the same way. What we're going to keep seeing here is that I think there's going to be more and more of this. They always come back and they assess the fee impacts. Then there's a trade group response coming from the Community Home Lenders of America. They laud the move, of course, which usually happens. Then and then they talk about like the rulemaking process would allow for the proper level of engagement to produce charges that benefit consumers and do not add compliant costs and lead to negative unintended consequences. We're going to see more of this. I mean, the
Well,
DOJ has a target on business right now, as we can see from what's going on with the Nozelec case. I think that's a great example.
between the two of us, you and I, we're going to oversee well over 1,000 transactions this year. You include Lisa, and you're talking, well over 2,000 transactions in just this calendar year. So we're
Hmm.
all pretty, um, you know, we're conscious of making sure that our customers, our clients are getting great service from the financing world, from the financing sector in our markets. You got to have a great relationship with lender or
Yes,
lenders. We go with lenders because we want choice.
agreed.
In this market, it doesn't even, I can't even I couldn't work with a lender that's overcharging. It'd be hard to even find one. There are lenders we don't work with that are super professional. It'd be hard to find a lender charging unnecessary fees when you need to be competitive because the rate's not doing you any favors.
Hmm.
So to spend time on junk fees as like they just been talking about them for 3 years. It's like, okay, make a rule that you can't make fees without having, disclosure around them
Yeah,
or whatever. I don't
justification.
fully understand it,
Yeah. Hmm.
but if you have any common sense and you're just comparing what one lender's doing to the other, you're going to eliminate any quote unquote junk fees off of competition. It's a very competitive environment right now for lenders.
Well, and I think this is the classic example, and I think this goes for any business because the federal government is a business where you're focused on the wrong stuff that doesn't really, inflation, cost of goods, like that's what people are concerned about, and it's another organization that's, I mean, you go into these federal budgets and that like they're spending all this money on like developing things and doing things that don't really impact what the American people actually like care about, and I think this is another great example now, and to your point, Byron, I think there was some data that came out from Lending Tree that if you look at U.S. home buyers, 54% of them take out a mortgage by only getting one loan offer. So I would imagine people are shopping around more, or maybe doing their shopping before that they actually buy in or get an agreement of sale. It looks like consumers. I mean, half of them aren't even shopping around. So is
Well,
this really that big of an issue?
this is a two. Yeah, I mean, 54% took out a mortgage with their most received only one loan offer. So one out of two aren't getting a second loan offer. I think that is an issue in the sense that, okay, there's two things happening.
It's an issue. Yes, I agree. This is an issue with business, but the junk fee question, you're right on. Keep going.
There's two things happening here. Like, I think customers, consumers, it doesn't hurt you to take a second look. It's just time. Sometimes people come in, it's like, I got my bank, I got my federal credit union, whatever. And that's who I'm going with for my mortgage. And take a second look, you might be surprised what you see on the other end, right? On the flip side, agents, if you're only giving one name because you just love your lender so much, like you're incapable of creating a second relationship that's just as good. I challenge you on that.
I
I
agree.
would I would challenge you on creating a second great relation. Oh, my lender is going to get mad. Dude, step up to the plate, be better. Like I want you guys to be competing against each other. I tell the lenders that I work with, the goal is for you guys to compete against each other. The goal is for us to get two names at least to every customer so that you both have to sharpen your pencils. Just by me making sure they sharpen their pencils and compete head to head, that takes junk fee out of the equation right there. Because if you're messing around with some type of erroneous fee, then you're going to lose the deal because the customer is going to say, "Well, I'm getting a better deal over here."
That's absolutely correct, Byron. And the lender that says, "Well, why are you making me compete?" It's, hey, I've got an obligation to the customer. Last time I
Yeah.
checked, I don't work for the lender. And a lot of lenders, I've had lenders where they give me a hard time, like, you're giving two names out to everybody. I'm like, yeah, I've got to worry about the consumer. And sometimes some lenders have better products for
And
one person versus another, and it could flip based on the loan portfolios available, based on credit score, income, all these things. It's not always a black and white sort of decision, and this is a big financial transaction. I mean, you want to make sure people are getting a good price on what they're buying.
and knowledge brokers out there, the more you do that, what Tom just said, do what's right for the customer, the more customers you're going to have. It breeds more deals over time. And the higher retention you're going to have when you give customers choice. So when you're giving them two lenders, you feel like, oh, I'm just not going to be able to serve up as many deals to my lender partners. No, you're going to increase capture. They call it loan capture, right? How many loans are you capturing on your buy side deals? You're going to increase more because the odds of them liking one of the two or one of one increase when you give two. I liked her, I liked him, didn't like whatever, and you just increase your chances of actually capturing the loan. So I'm a big proponent of 2 to 3 names. Nobody's going to want to talk to 7 lenders. That's a little bit insane. Get some optionality, some people that offer different product, that are experts in different things, that a customer can get a hold of, can get face to face if they're that kind of person, in your market. All those things definitely matter. But I'd love to see this number, Tom, in the future be um less than 54%. 54% picked the first one. So the 45% who did shop found a better deal. They ultimately were
Hmm.
able to find a better deal through this competitive shopping process. So sometimes the 54%, sometimes it's the customer. You can't turn them. They're like, my bank, I've been with them since I was
Yeah.
18. Yeah,
Or
well,
or like a credit union, right? Like, I
the
mean, there's a
credit
lot of
union.
local credit unions. Like, I'm part of Navy Federal, or the police and fire. Like, I mean, that's going to be a relationship that's tough to break because they intentionally are super competitive for their clients because they have a niche market there.
Yeah, but
Uh,
not all the time. I mean,
you're
I've seen
right.
those
I'm not.
deals get beat.
But my point is, there's something else there. There's a sense of community, which is pretty good. And if you look at this number here, 46% of those who got a mortgage say they went with a lender they didn't have a prior relationship with. So there's an
Yeah.
opportunity to win here. And for the lenders that are listening, what I would tell you is how much we talk about skill building and talking to people and building rapport. You've got to work on those skills too. This is not just for real estate agents. You've got to be able to intake the client properly, have a professional greeting, be super responsive, be communicative, and make sure you're on time. That is the biggest complaint that I have with lenders is not closing on time. You've got to be able to close when you say you will. That's a big, big deal, and hit deadlines throughout the agreement.
I've had decade-old relationships with lenders, and my last 3, um, times that I've used a mortgage, um, on either investment or primary, either way, the last 3 times I've used a different lender because I know these lenders. I'm like, "Well, he's better for this deal, he's better for that deal." I'm doing what's right for the deal, and oftentimes when we hand out leads too, Tom, best agent for the lead, not is it your turn. Your
Hmm.
turn is irrelevant if the customer is a better match for another agent. Even,
Yes.
smart agents know this, like, oh, I just got a new lead, a new referral, but man, so and so in my office would really be an asset here. Okay. I should bring so and so in because, man, she is the expert in this neighborhood. She lives in this neighborhood. She's got the last three record deals. And I know the property will sell, but I can still control the relationship and bring in help from so and so in my office to go do an over the top experience for the customer. And that's what's right for the customer. There's a lot of these situations you have to step back and say, right thing for the customer.
Well, when you have a customer first mindset, you usually win long term. So that's a great piece of advice there, Byron. And while we're talking about lenders here, we also had some interesting predictions come out from Fannie Mae this week. So
Updated
Fannie
projections.
updated, whatever you want to call them, it's the
Yeah.
latest because they're constantly changing. So Fannie Mae has moved their predictions for where we are going to see mortgage rates throughout 2024 and into 2025. They are now predicting by the end of 2024, we're going to see a flat 7%. Rates have creeped up a little bit. I'm seeing 6 and 7/8 locally here. And best case in 2025 is 6.6% by the end of the year and an average of 6.7% for the calendar year. And Lance Lambert, I thought he did a really interesting job with this, where he compared their predictions beforehand versus afterwards. And I mean, they're not changing their home price forecast. That remains unchanged, but they've gotten less optimistic, meaning they're predicting rates are going to stay higher for longer and tread around 7% for the next 18 months. I don't disagree with this, given what we're seeing. I don't know what you think, Byron. I mean, it looks like this is going to kind of be where we're at in terms of rates for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And Tom, by the way, I need to call you out because one of the pods that I missed, you said Byron, I think, had it wrong. He had the under on the
You know,
6.37. And I
that's
did
why you
not
wait
have the
until the
under.
end of
I
regulation.
I had the over,
We couldn't
Tom.
remember. We were. That's why we need you here on the
I
pods. So then we can
I
talk about
have been
lead.
the one I have been the one crapping on the year of the fives since January 1st. I've been consistent. All the hot sheet people know I've been consistent crapping on anybody saying this is the year of the fives. I've been telling people to go delete those silly videos that they made back in quarter one. The year of the fives, the year of the fives. It was always dumb advice because even if we got to 5 on the 30-year fix, that meant 5.9. That's just Walmart's way of saying 6. So it was always a stupid thing to say because the consumer hears fives and
They
they
think
hear
like five
5.
and a quarter or five flat. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so here we go. We're into June almost. We're about to, today's the 31st, Tom. So June 1st tomorrow. Shout out to you and your beach house here as we enter summer. But we're at 7.25 here. Yesterday we ended over 7.25. The read today will come out later in the day. It's not going to be that much change. We had um, the Fed's favorite inflation number came in as expected today, so that's good news. So we're not going to see it skyrocket up or anything, but we're still over 7, and we've been there basically the entirety of the year. Now Fannie Mae says, okay, we had projections for 2025 at 6%. Before that, they had it at 5.75. Now they've changed 2025 to 6.7. They've got us over 7 for the entirety of this year. That Fannie Mae chart, which for BAMX members, by the way, the Fannie Mae chart is in BAMX. It's in the hot sheet show notes from this week. So go grab it because I would highlight this for anybody with the objection. I'm going to wait until rates come down. Tom, you had somebody who asked you this question. Tom, I think I'm just going to hold off until these rates come down.
Let me read the text. I want to give you the context here. So the text went, "Good morning. I think we should remove the listing and relist when interest rates drop below 4%. And I wrote back, "How certain are you that rates will go that low?" And I was in the middle of getting ready here, and of course no one will be certain, but let's see how the rates will move over by the end of this year. And I sent back the chart, and there has been no silence. And he said, "Let's talk this afternoon." So
Let's
that's how
talk.
you want to, because this is data, right? And you can't, like, you don't want to defend. I think that's just like Sharon said about the NAR lawsuit. You're not here to defend, right?
No.
We're here to educate. This isn't me. This is Fannie Mae. Like, this is real data, and this could be a costly error in judgment for the consumer. No matter, and everyone's got consumers like this. It's not just me. It's not just you, Byron. It's everybody out there. And when you can rely on knowledge, like a knowledge broker should, you can rely on data. You're educated. This
Well,
wasn't like something I had to think about. I said, "Hey, great. I know what I'm doing here." And that's the importance of practicing your scripts and dialogues and knowing what to say.
here's the other thing about 4%. Okay. You can erase what happened during COVID. Those are very odd times. But
Extreme.
the 4% rate that we saw, even high mid fours or down to four before COVID, was in an economy that was on a 10-year run of recovery from the great financial collapse.
Yes.
So we got down to four for an extended period of time because of how low the Fed target rate got for an extended period of time because of a great financial crisis. Then we had COVID, which pulled it down. So also what you're telling me, Mr. Seller, is that we're waiting for the next collapse, either 100-year pandemic or big time recession, for these rates to get back down to four. And at the end of that, when the dust settles on that crisis, what would the home be worth? How many layoffs will we have gone through? I don't want to lead with fear, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about four, the market's just not going to naturally move down to four in a thriving economy. Okay, so either we're going to have a thriving, strong economy and your home value is going to continue to tick up and be very strong and be in this great position that it's in today, or it's going to have some type of pullback because people are going to lose jobs. And when people lose jobs, we're going to have to lower that rate. The rate's not just going to decide to go to four in a thriving economy. It doesn't work that way.
Well said. And again, I think that the point is, like, if it does happen, home value's not doing well. Like, that's the reality. I mean, I was selling in that financial collapse, and it's the only time I've seen prices go down, and that is a hard conversation with people. So, that I mean, that's I think that's a great place to kind of leave the pod here, Byron. You got anything else you want to add on? I mean, we covered a lot. I think you got to get these scripts down, get this knowledge down, be aware of what's going on in your MLS. I think this is going to be something interesting to watch here. Where do you want to leave it today? You weren't here last week. We talked about skills that agents need to have over the summer. Anything you want to add in on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of skills you need to be working on over the summer, and there's a great place to get a refresher on those skills, be the agent of change, and that's in Vegas in October. Bam Mania. Tom, are you going to be there?
I'm going to be at BAM Mania
All
because
right.
I'm a committed member of the BAM team since day one. So I show up and I show out, Byron. That's how it goes.
Listen, I think ultimately the training has to start now. You can't wait for, we're passionate about Bam Mania event. It's going to be the best event of the year. A lot of agents of change are going to be in that room. It's at a sick venue, Circa in Las Vegas, brand new. Place is unbelievable, Tom. They got that outdoor screen with the pools, the Legacy Club, all this cool stuff. So there's a link down below if you want to check that out. But you need to be training every single day. I'm personally training at a different level than what I've done in the past. I'm training with my agents every single day. I think until you get to a level where you have so much certainty in the changes for you locally, you have so much certainty in the contracts, you have so much certainty in breaking down the elements of a deal step by step, then you need to keep leaning into the training and the knowledge. And I know if you're listening this far onto this pod, that that's who you are. So appreciate you being one of those knowledge brokers. Appreciate you listening to this pod, and just go down below and hit the subscribe. It's super easy. It's right down below. It's right there. It's not painful. It's just right down below the subscribe and the notification bell. It'll make Tom's frown go upside down. Which, Tom, I saw a big smile out of you from the beach the other day. You're breaking in
That's
the beach house.
yes. Well, I mean, you only get so many days when your kids actually want to talk to you and hang out with you. And I think the clock is ticking for my family. So I'm trying to get as much of it as I can because that does go fast. I mean, your oldest is the same age as my youngest, and she's going into second grade next year. That gets
I
real.
know.
My
Last
son
day.
is my son is 5'2". He's almost taller than me and you, and he's 11 years old. So it's very you wake up and the kids grow up fast. I want to leave you with this.
Last day of school today, by the way, for her.
I like your last day of
First
school
grade.
a lot earlier. Ours is like mid-June, which
Yeah.
sucks. But anyway, one thing I want to leave you with on what you said, Byron, I think this is a great way to end the pod. We're training at that same high level too, role playing, aggressively role playing, going through these things. And part of practicing isn't just doing the practice. You actually got to use the reps. Like this is, I think, where a lot of agents get jammed up. Where I'm so good at practice, and they look at the role play or the practice in the training room. It's like, all right, I nailed that. Well, you know what you really got to nail is the actual performance with your clients. And if you're not putting these skills to use and not getting those reps in, you're not going to build confidence. And I think that's where a lot of people get jammed up. They're confident in a role play or a presentation that they're practicing, but they're not confident in front of a client. And if you're not using the skills will erode. I want to be very clear with everyone on that. Yep. You've got to get real-time reps in. And look, it's never going to go perfectly. You bat 3 for 10, you're in the Hall of Fame, right? You go 1 for 10 in real estate on talking to someone on the phone. You have 10 conversations, book 1 appointment. That is Hall of Fame status. I want to be very clear. That's an incredible number. You get, 1 out of every 2 listings signed. You're doing better than most agents, right?
It's just the fact that you're on 2 listings, you're doing better than most agents.
I mean, the top 50% of listing agents last year, according to NAR, you had to sell 2.7 listings, not even 3. So you've got to use these skills and implement them, because if you're not doing that, it's going to sound clunky and not professional.
I'll give you a sports analogy that'll resonate with anybody who's golfed before on using the skills. You can go get a lesson on a flat, driving range with a coach or, with the golf pro at the club.
Are you talking to me now?
This is something you should do. I'm encouraging you to do this summer. So you get a lesson, driving range, it's flat. It's a nice experience, and you can really get into a groove. You can get into a rhythm. You got the coach there, you got the golf pro telling you exactly what to do, how to swing, how to consistently repeat that swing. The minute you get on the golf course, all of a sudden the ball, you hit it over a little bit to the right. Now you're on an elevated fairway. The ball's a foot over your feet. Now you have a whole different grip than what you were practicing on the script. All of a sudden, you hit the ball down towards the green, and maybe the ball's below your feet. Maybe it's in some sand. Maybe it's in some pine needles. There's all these different elements that come out when you're on the field, when you're in the field talking to customers. And when you've heard it in the field multiple times, you start to understand that a lot of objections, me and Tom, you and I always say objections are the same. But they come in different flavors. And when you haven't heard a lot of objections, you think they're all different. That's not really the case. They're just coming at you wrapped in different flavoring from the people's personal situation. Tom, the other thing we can't fail to mention, and this is what we'll leave you guys with, is next Thursday over at next Thursday over. This is like, I don't know how we forgot this, because it's exactly what we're talking about. So next Thursday over at the Now BAM YouTube channel. Okay. So the other YouTube channel, the BAM YouTube channel, we are going to be live. It's Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock on the West Coast. It is a live YouTube event. Role playing, myself, Tom Toole. Tom, did you know who's joining us?
I didn't. I just have an invite in my calendar, and I'm ready to be.
We got a West Coaster joining us. Ben Black is
Ben Black
us.
Is not a West Coaster. Ben Black is from Pennsylvania, and he's relocated to the West Coast.
That's true.
That's why he's good.
Now he's the big LA guy. He's on selling, Hoobie Doos in LA, whatever the hell the show is. Ben is, I think he's on what? Selling Sunset. Which one's he on?
Selling Beverly Hills. That's what
Selling
he's on.
Beverly. He's on one of
With his
those.
friend John Grauman.
So Ben's gonna come on and he's gonna see what he can do to stump myself, Tom Toole. We'll throw him some objections. We're
This
gonna
is
be
gonna be
working.
gold.
This is gonna be gold. We're gonna be working through a lot of objections. What you should be doing on live sales calls as a real estate professional. And that's a free event Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon, over on the BAM YouTube channel. So go over and make sure you get your placeholder for that, your notification bell for that as well.
Ben Balak knows his stuff. I mean, I'm excited he's coming on because he works on his craft. Like, I'll get messages from him. He's like, "Hey, have you tried this? Have you done that?" And that's someone that's in the lab testing things. And the Beverly Hills market is super competitive. So I mean, he's going out and like that's like the toughest golf course. He's also a big golfer, Byron. So there's your analogy for you.
I think Eric was talking to Ben, and Ben kind of begged him to come on to the event, you know, because he's been on some other events for some other stuff, and you know they just don't have the passion that the BAM community does. So he really was like, "Let me get on this BAM event with Tom and Byron." Plus, he loves you, Tom. But I think it's very valuable for everybody who tunes in because Ben is dealing with ultra luxury and very high end prices. Tom and I consider ourselves, while we do some luxury, we're definitely meat and potatoes, you know. So as Tom always says, meat and potato market, right? So I think we're going to get the whole, you know, spectrum of deals on this objection handling live event, and we'll be able to cover. So if you're somebody who's trying to raise your price point, somebody who's just trying to get more listings in your average price point in your market, 2/3 of the sales NAR just reported, Tom, 2/3 of sales over this year have been under 500,000. So I always say to agents, I want to raise the price point. Yeah, but 66% are happening under 500,000 across this country. Obviously not the case for Ben in Beverly Hills, but not everybody works in Beverly Hills. So that'll be a fun deal. We'll have the link down below so you can make sure you put the notification bell on that too.
Love it. I'm
All right.
pumped Ben's coming on. That's great.
That's going to
Tune
be
in
great.
on Thursday. Don't miss that.
Let's wrap this up. Enjoy the beach this weekend, Tom.
I will not be there, but I'll be enjoying Pennsylvania. Goodbye.
See ya. We know that in 2024, your business operations will be more important than ever. Once I figured this out, my business was able to scale and take off. See, generating leads is one thing, but getting that deal across the finish line while keeping everyone happy is another story. Enter Mosaic, everything you need once a lead becomes a client. Mosaic picks up where CRMs leave off to streamline the client experience and maximize your productivity. It's the operating platform that gives agents and teams everything they need to stay organized and proactive throughout the entire transaction process and beyond. Transaction management, forms, AI-powered collaborative search, client retention capabilities, and advanced analytics for your business. In other words, you can use Mosaic to create a powerful flywheel for your business. It will help you close every deal, boost your profitability, and generate more repeat and referral business. If you need a better way to run your business, check out the link below and learn how Mosaic can help you today. At BAMX, we listen to what real estate professionals want and need. That's why our platform is filled with sought-after courses, content, and tactical assets for your business. And that's why we launched BAMX in a box with templates and scripts done for you, delivered each Friday. The best part? It's not coming from panel pontificators who bought their followers and don't sell any real estate. It's coming from top agents, team leaders, and content creators in the industry. It's education that actually shows you how to do what you need in today's market. And now it includes editable templates and scripts so you can easily deliver that knowledge to your database. Every day, we continue to add more content into BAMX, into our private Facebook community, content that works, content that our members have exclusive access to daily. Do not wait any longer. Use code KNOWLEDGEBROKERS and join the thousands of agents taking their business to the next level today. Use Knowledge Brokers for 10% off. See you in BAMX.